I'm Owen from Bite Size Irish Gaelic. Welcome to episode 14 Iver a Cahardiag of the Bite Size Irish Gaelic podcast. Even if you're alone learning to speak Irish outside of Ireland, don't despair. Rest assured that there are thousands like you across the globe, all interested in tapping into Ireland's native culture. For all about this podcast, go to bitesizeirishgaelic.com/podcast. In today's episode, I'm going to address quite a few listener questions that we've received at Bite Size Irish Gaelic. People who have been learning Irish no matter where they are in the globe. Let me just start by telling you that Sasha and my wife, we went to Riverdance in the University of Limerick in Ireland. So as far as I know, it's been the first time that Riverdance, the show, has been run in Limerick. And if you're not quite sure what Riverdance is, it's a 20-year-old show. What happened, we have the Eurovision Song Contest in Europe. And during the 90s, Ireland won quite a couple of times. So if you ever watched Father Ted, that's such a good show. If you're looking for some comedy based on Irish culture and humour, watch Father Ted. So Riverdance was kind of an entertainment piece during one of the times that Ireland held the Eurovision. So what it was an Irish dance routine, but something very powerful. They built music around it. They had, 50 dancers on stage, and it was like a 10-minute interval act during the 90s. People loved it. It exploded and it became a 2-hour show. So what happened was they toured this show, and Michael Flatley, he broke away and made his own show at the time, at the Lord of the Dance. So I think Riverdance learned from this and they made a 2-hour show of it, and it is spectacular. They basically constructed, from what I saw, a massive stage at the University of Limerick just for this show. And okay, we were one of the last ticket holders at this show because it was so much demand in Limerick, and we were right up at the top back. But that didn't take away from being at the show. You get a real nice taster of Irish dancing. They have Spanish flamenco dancing. They have dancing from the States, and it's all kind of mixed into some kind of a story. And they finish off with a really spectacular piece of Irish dancing. And fair play to the Irish dancers, who I've heard from a friend who he knew somebody who was dancing in Riverdance. And the poor girl, she said she had to dunk her feet into iced water after each show because she was in such pain. Those dancers, they hit the floor so hard, and they're doing it for 2 hours. So fair play to them. So if you ever get to see Riverdance or something like it, I do recommend that you go. Sasha and I loved it. Before I jump into the listener questions, I heard from Jojannika, and Jojannika is in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. And she was kind enough to make a couple of sound recordings based around her learning in Bite Size Irish Gaelic online lessons. So what we're going to do now is going to play her first clip, and I'll come right back after that.
There is something funny about saying hello in Irish. If somebody says "Diachuit" to you, you cannot just say "Diachuit" back. When you have to, or you want to answer "Diachuit," which means as much as God to you, you have to answer it and you have to top it, like Gia's muirechwit. Gia is muirechwit, which means God and Mary to you. So it's kind of a battle, but it's a really friendly religious battle.
So fair play to Jojannika, first for recording it and just putting her voice out there. A lot of learners that we've come across who want to learn the Irish language, Irish Gaelic, they're a bit afraid, I think, of expressing themselves, saying something in public. And just by recording something, just by saying some little thing that your friends can hear, put it out online, put maybe a video on YouTube. That's one idea. You just put yourself out there, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be good. Fair play to Jojannika, as we say. Fair play. Well done to her. It was good pronunciation. And it's interesting that she says it's a battle. It's a religious battle. When you're saying hello to somebody in Ireland, in Irish, you say Giahuit. That's how you start off, Giahuit. And to reply to that person, like she said, you don't just say Giahuit back. You don't just say hello back. You say Gia is morehuit. So what that literally means, the first one is like God to you. The second one is God and Mary to you. So it's just more and more religious, and there's even longer forms that you can reply back to that, but that's not normal in normal conversation. And Janneke recorded another piece, so I'm going to play that too. Janneke says, lovely things about Bite Size Irish Gaelic. I don't want to use this podcast as like a sales tool or something for Bite Size Irish Gaelic. So thanks so much to her for saying the kind words, and here we go.
Chiachwit. For some time now, I have been learning Irish at bitesizeirishgaelic.com, the e-learning course made by a nice guy called Owen. The lessons already have proven themselves to be very useful. Last year, I visited Ireland several times. The last time was in December, when my book So, You're an Orphan Now was published internationally. The ability to speak a little Irish is a great icebreaker. Not everywhere, though. Many people just gazed at me a little embarrassed, telling me that they should have paid more attention to their lessons in school. Maybe they could start at Owen's class. Anyway, speaking a little Irish has many effects. Taxi drivers almost instantly propose to you. Of course, it's entirely up to you whether or not you're interested. When you visit the Gaeltacht, the areas where Irish is still spoken, it's a great icebreaker anywhere, in the bus, in the pub, anywhere. The reason I started learning Irish is that I wanted to experience e-learning made by somebody else. Since 2010, I've been teaching professionals about online strategy and social media, online, with e-learning. And I really wanted to experience the complete learning curve, but that's only possible when you're learning something that you know nothing about. In my case, that was Irish. But since I love Ireland so much, I thought I'd just give it the lash. So here we go. Well, Giahuit, Janneke is animdom. Is an Israeltir, agus tame imokoni in Rotterdam anish. Ach is me liam kort a Harvard a Erin. Tame korleer man horshalta. Gore mi de mahagat puirs agal liat a geestacht. Slanagat. I said something like, well, hello, Janneke is my name. I'm from Holland and I live in Rotterdam at the time. And I really love to visit Ireland. I am a consultant in online strategy, in social media. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and goodbye for now. So if you're interested in learning to speak Irish as well, please visit bitesizeirishgaelic.com with the very nice Owen. And on Twitter you can find them under the name Bitesize Irish. Good luck, Rama a Howard Ditch. Slán go fóill.
Well done to Janneke again. I found it very interesting. She said, many Irish people say they should have paid more attention in school. And that's something we hear so often in Ireland. A lot of people have nice feelings towards the Irish language. There's so much like politics and emotions around the Irish language. So it's a complicated subject, right? But a lot of people will tell us that they just wish they paid more attention in school instead of, there's kind of a systemic problem of kids not wanting to learn Irish because it's just something they meet in school, basically. That's how I interpret it. So if you're out there outside of Ireland and you're interested in learning Irish, or you are learning to speak the Irish language and you have a couple of focal, you have a couple of words in Irish, well done to you. Like, what you're doing outside of Ireland is so much stronger compared to what most of the population in Ireland itself does. As in, they're a bit apathetic and they don't really want to learn to speak Irish. They're happy learning. They're not happy learning. They're happy just speaking English. So we have to keep the cause alive, right? So it's really nice to hear when we hear from people in the States, in Australia, and further afield, outside of the Anglo-Saxon world, should I say that? All people who are learning to speak the Irish language. All right, on to some listener questions. Kylie wrote in and said, "Hi Owen, just listened to your podcast number 8 with Mary Murphy, where she interviewed you. I have to say, Kylie, that was really good fun, and thanks to Mary again for doing that interview of me on the podcast. I wanted to say, when I was listening to you both speak Gaelic, I actually was able to pick up one word, and that was agus, which translates to and. I was excited, and I just wanted to let you know that your podcast and CD have been helping me. Thank you, Kylie. Kylie, I guess it's the CD that you refer to. I guess it's Learn Irish with Owen. It's an album that we have on iTunes. So it's not a physical CD, but it is a 1 hour album, which a lot of people said they enjoyed it a lot and they play it in the car or whatever. So I just wanted to say, Kylie, thanks. It's great when you break through and you hear some speakers of Irish use Irish themselves, and when you can pick out a word, you're doing great already. Like, fair play. Oh, is that going to be the catchphrase for this episode? Fair play. Well done. And keep at it. There's no stopping you now. So I got an email from Will, and he said, in lesson number 1, you say conas atatu. So first of all, Will has taken our free trial at bitesizeirishgaelic.com, and he's practicing some Irish using our stuff online. So he says we say conas atatu. Now, conas atatu is a question, and it basically means how are you? So it's something that you can greet somebody with. You could say Gihuit conas atatu. Now, Will says, but later on you state that it's conas tatu. You drop the a in ata. So instead of saying conas atatu, in another lesson we say conas tatu. Will says, love these lessons. So far the best way to learn, and I spent years learning German in college. So thanks, Will. So the answer to that is both phrases are correct. This is a dialects thing, right, for the Irish language. And what we say about dialects is, don't worry about it, right? Be aware of the dialects. Don't be afraid of the dialects. That's what Audrey said to us in one of the most recent episodes 12 or 13. Basically, in Irish, there's different ways to say stuff, right? And it's just as in English. You could say, how are ya, or how's it going, or are you well, or there's different phrases and different shapes of phrases that you can take. And that's an example. This is a simple example because there's only one letter difference between conas atatu and conas tatu. So just to say that conas tatu, the shorter one, is slightly more of a regional variance down in Munster, which is the southern part of Ireland. Conas atatu is still a kind of a Munster thing to say. There's, for example, up in Donegal and Ulster, you could say Kuje maratatu. I know it's a completely different phrase, but in the same context, that's what you ask somebody. That's how you greet somebody in that context. So I have to say that when you're learning, it can be complicated, right? And I understand that because you see a H here, you don't see a H, you see one word spelled like this, or you see it formed in a different way. And it can be a bit confusing when you're a learner. What I would say is don't worry so much about those little details. I know that's hard to say when you're trying to learn and you say, well, you look at a word and there's a H in one place, and in another place you saw the same word but no H as the second letter of the word. All I can say, Will, is don't let this stop you. It's good that you're asking why things are the way they are, and keep learning and keep at it. Well done. And Will, at the end of his email, he said, do you know the kids at Lurgan making song videos? Very well done, Will. So yeah, those are the TG Lurgan kids. As far as I know, it's like a summer college, so the parents send their teenage kids out to this Irish college. The kids get to learn to speak the Irish language in a fun context. And TG Lurgan, they have been putting out some superb videos. So a lot of the stuff it's like a current pop song in the English language, but they translate it into the Irish language. And not just that, it's not just a boring production, but you can feel the energy. You can see the kids are enjoying singing the song, and those videos are really cool. So we'll put a link to those videos to TG Lurgan in the podcast show notes, and that'll be bitesizeirishgaelic.com/podcast, and you can find episode 14. Alright, we had another question, and this is quite a technical question again. So, Ageliki dar. Sorry, Ageliki, that's my own pronunciation of your name. And Ageliki asked, hello again. A very short question. In the bite-size Irish Gaelic lesson, the word tin, and that's spelled Tinn, and it means to be sick or sickness. So the word tin sounds clearly as starting with a CH sound. So like chin, like in the English chin on your face. I think that in another lesson though, I hear the same word and it's starting with the sound of T. So tin, and like the word tin in English. Could be my mistake, or the word may have two ways to pronounce it. What's the story? If not, the correct pronunciation is CH or with T. That's what Ageliki asks. So, first thing is we have to be consistent in how we pronounce stuff in our online lessons. So, thanks for pointing out if there is a discrepancy between how we emphasize different words and different sounds in the same word. So, the whole thing comes down to this. The Irish language has different sounds compared to, for example, the English language. And that's obvious. If you hear a spoken Irish language and you're a native English speaker, there's these kind of sounds that you hear people speaking, and it's hard to catch with your ear. It's hard to understand, right? And it is difficult. It takes time. You have to tune your ear in to hear these different sounds. In Irish, the letter T can take two different sounds. Now there could be more, but these are the main sounds, right? We call it broad and slender. So the broad T, for example, is in the word ta. So that's T-A fada, so the fada is an accent over it, so it's T-A, and there's an accent over the A. That T sound is a broad one. Now, in the word tin, Tinn, or tin, it's a slender sound. How you know this is that Tinn is spelled with the vowel I. I don't want to go into too many details, but the vowels E and I are slender vowels. What it basically tells you is there's two different T sounds in Irish. Now in English, you can do this, for example, by writing the letters CH together, and it doesn't sound like K, and it doesn't sound like H, like CH, but they make their own sound combined, and that's Ch. So same general thing can happen in Irish. So we can have the same letter T, and it can have different sounds. Now, there's only so much detail I can go into this in the podcast, and I don't want to bore people, I don't want to confuse people, I don't want to frustrate people. So if you're interested in this, right, I'll put a link in our show notes at bitesizeirishgaelic.com/podcast to our pronunciation cheat sheets. They're very popular, and they'll explain step by step how to pronounce the different words, how words are spelled, and how that implies how it should be pronounced. So in the end, it can mean that you can see a written word and you can tell how it should be pronounced. Alright, on to a question from Lottie Watson. And Lottie says, Greta Mahagut, thank you. I really enjoyed your podcast and sorry that I haven't been keeping up. It has been a busy time. I do have a couple of questions for you about pronunciations. Now, this is where Lottie comes in with a couple of different ways to say goodbye in Irish. So those are slán liat, slán agut, slán awalya, and slán gafol. Now again, I don't want to go into too many details. We do cover all of those combinations in one of our lessons at bitesizeirishgaelic.com. But right now, I do want to just say that the word slán, that's a great little word that anybody can remember that word, right? If you practice it once or twice every week, you will be able to remember slán. And it's a nice little word that you will be able to use if you're visiting Ireland. So slán in itself just means like goodbye. You could use longer forms, but just use slán and people know, first of all, that you're speaking the Irish language. Second of all, that you're learned maybe a little bit of the language and you want to have a bit of fun, a bit of crack. So I won't go into the explanations of those different phrases that Lottie mentioned, but let's see. A nice little one is slán go fóill, and that means bye for now. So you're just saying like, see ya, slán go fóill. So what he continues, I know in my head I'm saying these wrong, and I don't want to fall into bad habits. So Lottie, well done to you, because you're going out and you're asking these questions. You're learning some phrases. You don't have to remember all those phrases, but you're asking for help. You're asking for pronunciation help, and you're looking to improve whatever you've already learned. So well done. Laddie's asks, also, which dialect of Gaelic are we learning? Irish or Northern Irish? Oh, so Laddie, okay. At Bite Size Irish Gaelic, the recordings are by me, myself, Owen, at the time of recording this podcast. So I'm from Munster, and my Irish is generally of the Munster slant, and that's the southern kind of part of the island of Ireland. There's 4 provinces in Ireland, on the island, and Munster is one of them. There are 3 dialects of Irish: Ulster, Connacht, and Munster. What we do at Bite Size Irish Gaelic, where possible, we stick to kind of standardized Irish to give you the best chance to not get confused with one particular dialect at a time. What we basically tell you is learn some Irish. I don't care what dialect you're learning. I don't mind where you're learning it from. Learn some Irish. You'll learn some different phrases. You'll hear different phrases. That's fine. Stick with one phrase for one context. That's all I suggest for you. And later on, you can specialize in the dialect, right? Now, Lottie asks if we use the Irish dialect or the Northern Irish dialect. So in Northern Ireland, generally, that's the Ulster dialect. The Ulster dialect is wider than just Northern Ireland, which is in the United Kingdom. I don't want to get into politics, but basically, over the northern part of the island of Ireland, it's the Ulster dialect of Irish. Then along the Midwest coast is Mayo and Galway, and that would be the Connacht dialect. And down towards Munster, down towards the south is the Munster dialect. So we at Bite Size Irish Gaelic, we do not specialise in the Ulster dialect, which is what you find in Northern Ireland. And the only thing I want to finish saying that is, do not let dialects stop you from learning Irish. There have been so many people I've come across over the years, right? And they're worried sick about this question of dialects. And guess what? They never start learning. They never even start to learn to say giaquit, like Yannick said earlier in the episode. They don't learn to say conasatatu or kajemaratatu for how are you doing or how are you. So just learn some Irish. Don't get stuck with it. You can specialise later. Just learn some phrases. Lottie also asks, I'm sure it's not Scots or Cornish or Welsh, right? So Lottie, that's correct. What we're talking about here is Irish Gaelic. Now, even that phrase is a bit politically contentious. Jeez, it seems like every concept around the Irish language, there's some kind of contentious issue around it. But Irish Gaelic is the phrase we use to label this language, and it's the native language of the people of Ireland, the island of Ireland. Now, there's a very close relation linguistically, and that's Scots or Scottish Gaelic or Gaelic, it might be called, and that's mostly what it's called in Scotland itself, Gaelic, right? So once upon a time, people travelled up north from Ireland across the way into Scotland. You can see Scotland on a good day from Ireland, from the northern tip of Ireland. So it's not that much of a jump. You just go over in a boat, right? So that whole language was kind of a gradient from Ireland stretching out into Scotland. It was really all the same language. Now they're justified to be called 2 different languages, Irish Gaelic and Scottish Gaelic or Gaelic. Now there are other Celtic languages. Irish Gaelic, Irish language, is a Celtic language. So other Celtic languages around here in this area of the world is, for example, Cornish in Cornwall in England, and Wales, which is its own place in Britain. Oh, I don't want to go into too much politics. It's in the United Kingdom and even in northern France, Breton in Brittany. They're all Celtic languages, but they're a separate branch of the Celtic languages from Irish and Scottish Gaelic. So there's some words you can see similarities between those two branches of the Celtic languages, but to be honest, like for example, if I hear some Scottish Gaelic spoken, I'll be able to pick up some stuff. I'll be able to kind of make out what's happening. I might have to study it a bit, right? However, Welsh, I simply cannot understand what's being said in Welsh. I would have to study it from a book or with a native speaker from Wales and start to see connections and basically learn it as a new language. So yeah, what we cover is definitely not Welsh. It's definitely not Scottish Gaelic, even though it's very close to Irish Gaelic. And Irish Gaelic itself has 3 dialects. So Lottie finishes and she says, so many questions. How do I pronounce Beannacht J? Well, there you go. And it means like God bless or God's blessings. Beannacht J. Or Gamani Gia Ruit, which basically means may God bless you. Gamani Gia Ruit. Now, an interesting point is I've gotten emails over the years from people saying that they're not religious, so they want to learn the non-religious ways of saying things in Irish. And what I'll kind of say is, right, like also, I'm not religious either, but I'll still use Giahuit. I'll still say Giahuit for hello, which literally means God to you. So that's pretty religious. What this really points to is how the Irish language tells us how Irish people historically have seen the world. And religion was a big part of the world for many centuries. To use a phrase that's not kind of godly, that's not religious, and it's, so non-religious phrases. But then you'd be using phrases that are not the phrases used in everyday Irish. So I don't really get the point there either. And let's get back to English, right? So the word good, as far as I know, has connections with the word God. And for example, goodbye has something to do with God be with you in English, right? So even in your mind, you might be disconnected from the fact that goodbye has nothing to do with the word God. Well, guess what? It is. It's kind of a descendant of that kind of religious talk. And all I can say is, well, you're not being religious by using phrases in Irish. You're just using the phrases that Irish people have historically used in the past centuries. Lottie had a couple of more questions. How to pronounce Céad Míle Fáilte Róit? Well, there you go, Lottie. And that means 100,000 welcomes. That's a nice one. And Mochara means my friend. Mochara. Lottie says, I know the translation, but I think the pronunciation is Saoirse. So that's another word, Saoirse, and it means freedom. She ran across the word but couldn't find the pronunciation. And Lottie finishes, I'll try to be content with these questions for now and catch up with more podcasts. Lemas, Lottie Watson. Well, Lottie, thanks so much for being a listener to the Bite Size Irish Gaelic podcast. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your good questions, and we're always happy to answer your questions at Bite Size Irish Gaelic. We don't generally do kind of literal translation requests, but if we can help you with a word or two, we will. Well, we've really got the language questions today. I don't want to go into too many technicalities, like I said, but another email we got was, and this was from someone who didn't give their name, thank you for the second email lesson from Irish for Beginners. So that's the free email course that we provide, and just go to bitesizeirishgaelic.com/podcast, and if you find episode 14 in the show notes, I'll link to Irish for Beginners. But this person continues, I've noticed that there are no accent marks on any of the syllables. Do certain syllables have more stress, or is it a language similar to Japanese where there are no stresses at all? So I don't know exactly how to answer that. Accent marks, what we call sína fada in the Irish language, they're little lines above some vowels. And what they tell you is they give you an indication of how that word is pronounced. So if you see the letter A with a line over it, it's pronounced aw. But if you see the letter A without a line over it, generally it's more like a ah. It's a shorter vowel, a shorter sound. So I think what this person who emailed in, I think they saw a phrase that simply did not have any accent marks. It just happened that those words did not have any accent marks in them. Sometimes you'll see the letter A with an accent mark, sometimes you won't see it. Just depends on the word. So it's a bit like the English language. If there's, again, the C letter, you can see a C on its own, or it could be CH, and that changes how it's pronounced. Just like an accent mark in Irish changes how the vowel is pronounced. I'll finish up by giving you a nice comment from Basia Cohen, an illustrator and an artist. So Basia said, "Your podcasts are very interesting, informative and entertaining. I started using Memrise after listening to your interview with Terry Simons. That was episode 2 and that was so good. Terry covered the top apps for your mobile phone that are currently out. They're the best apps that he found for learning a little bit of Irish on the go." So Basti said, "It really helps me learn new vocabulary and solidify my knowledge." So yeah, I love Memrise. It's like they have little courses that people have put together on their own, and they help you with mnemonics. So if you're trying to learn a new phrase in a new language, other people will already have posted like little illustrations or word combinations that they might be a bit strange, but they help you to learn that word. So I was using it to learn some Japanese language symbols, and I really loved it. Memrise, Memrise. So do check it out if you can. And Basia said, "I love listening to Radio na Gaeltachta while I paint or draw, especially programs with Irish music." Yeah, definitely. That's a great tip for learners. "In the beginning, I didn't understand anything except a few English words once in a while. Now I recognize many of the Irish words. It's very exciting to understand more and more." Yeah, that's really cool, Basia. Well done. Again, back to our recent episode, I believe episode 12 with Audrey. She gives structured tips on how to listen to radio, both passively and actively. So she really shared some really nice tips. So I do recommend listening back. And Basia finished saying, "Gur mahagot as 8 bite-size Irish Gaelic," which means thanks for bite-size Irish Gaelic. And that's basiacohen.com. Basia, thanks a lot. Thanks so much for... I love hearing from listeners. And I want to shout out to some new listeners that we might have. Maybe that you're only kind of jumping on to the Bite Size Irish Gaelic podcast bandwagon right now. We have some really nice listeners who they post comments on the show notes. But I want to hear from new people, new listeners who have come across this podcast. So if you have, you can email me, and it's podcast@bitesizeirishgaelic.com, and that will get directly to me, Owen. So to finish off, to leave a comment for this episode of Bite Size Irish Gaelic Podcast, go to bitesizeirishgaelic.com/podcast and go to episode 14, and you can just leave a reply under the page. It's just a comment. If you're loving the show, the best thing you can do is go to iTunes and leave a written 5-star review for Bite Size Irish Gaelic Podcast. To do that, you go to iTunes Store, log in, search for Bite Size Irish Gaelic Podcast and write a written review. Thanks to Tukumo for their music, which you hear in this episode under a Creative Commons license. And until the next episode, slán go fóill. Bye for now.